predecessor kind of set it up.
Yeah, it's grayed out, so it's recording, so you're good. You can start.
Okay.
Barry.
All right, well, it is at 6:31, but we'll call this meeting to order. And Don, when you're ready, you want to start with the roll call?
Just a moment. I don't know, I remember stuff.
They're on the bottom of the list.
Here.
John Miller and Bob Cooper.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, right here.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
All right,
It's a lot longer than it used to be.
it is. Roll call. Barry McManaway,
Present.
Dan Osborne. Dan with us remotely. Okay. Wayne Bean,
Here.
Joel Samuelson. Joel, I don't think he's gonna be here. Mr. Goot,
Here, present.
thank you, Chester. Andy Strati,
Here.
John Miller,
Here.
and Bob Cooper.
All right, everybody here, so you want to stand and raise your flag?
Allegiance.
Pledge
to the flag
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
which stands one nation under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. All right.
That's the election of officers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, just so. Pointed that out.
I guess we'll go on to it first. I know approving the minutes, but
Okay, we can go with that.
yeah, before we go with the reappointment, let's go ahead and everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes from November.
Yep.
Okay, and I'd entertain a motion to approve those or. need a
So
second
moved.
otherwise. Got a first
Second.
and a second. Any discussion?
Roll call.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Oh, we need a
Aye.
roll call.
All right. Hold on. It's gonna be approval by
Roll call.
roll call.
Okay. Barry McManaway,
Yes.
Wayne Bean,
Yes.
Chester Good,
Yes.
Andy Strati.
Yes.
Did John and Bob vote? Because they weren't here at the last meeting.
No.
So,
No.
Okay.
Vote on that.
and I vote aye. Okay.
All right, so it's approved.
Do we need to approve the minutes for the special meeting we had on TIP as well? Yeah, I thought we did.
Oh, yeah.
I sent those along with the monthly
Yeah,
minutes.
yep. So I'll need another motion to approve that minutes, and that was.
So moved.
21st, it's on there,
December
22nd.
21st, wasn't it? All right, got first and second.
Who's our second?
Come from over here, I thought.
I second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, call the roll on that one. Barry McManaway,
Aye, approved.
Wayne Bean,
Yes.
Chester Goot,
Aye.
Andy Strati,
Yes.
and I vote aye. Okay, motion carries.
All right, moving on. Vote for appointing of new officers. And we can start with the secretary.
We started with the president.
Oh, we started.
All right, start with president.
I move we nominate Barry McManaway for president.
Second it.
Any other nominations?
Are you
All right.
fishing?
Roll call, I guess, the appointment. What?
Okay, on the motion to elect Barry McManaway president of the Plan Commission. Barry McManaway,
Yeah,
Wayne Bean,
Yes, yes.
okay, Chester Good,
Yes,
Andy Strati.
Yes.
And I vote aye. Congratulations,
And
Mr.
John
President.
Miller and Bob Cooper.
Oh, that's right. You guys get to vote on
Yeah, you
that.
guys get to vote.
Sorry about that. John Miller
Aye.
and Bob Cooper.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
All right, moving on to the vice president. And I think Andrew did a very good job.
It was outstanding, I thought.
I thought so.
So who made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Payback.
Okay, call the roll. Barry Fanaway.
Yes.
Wayne Bean,
Yes.
Chester Good,
yes,
Andy Strati,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Bob Cooper.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
All right, moving on to secretary.
yes.
Nominate Don.
Yes.
Nominate Don Fox. Huh? Second,
Thank you, guys. All right, we'll call the roll. Barry Fanaway. Wayne Bean,
Yes.
Chester Good,
yes,
Strati,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Bob Cooper.
Yes.
And I vote aye as well.
Very good.
Okay,
And now probably be a good time to remind everybody that we are being recorded. So anything that you don't want to say, don't say, because it will be recorded. Anything you do say will be heard later. On the agenda, we have for a discussion of amending the line of sight. I guess for the new members, I don't know if you knew what the line of sight ordinance calls for. Maybe Chester, no, not Chester, but Chuck, you might want to explain the process you've been going through. I know it's written in the ordinances.
What we have, John and Bobby, is that if you're tearing down a house or adding on in L1 district, which is around the lake, if this property sets at 25 feet back off of the property line, this is the one being torn down, and the third one sets back at, say, 40 feet. We draw a line from this furthermost point on this one over to here, and this is all the farther he can go. So what I've been struggling with, and I think we need to get it corrected because it's just a big continuing problem in L1. The person, if this guy was at 40 feet back, and the third guy was 40 feet back, line of sight, this guy can only go at 40 feet.
So the
Our ordinance says he can go to 25 feet, but the line of sight overcomes that. And so what we're doing is we're hindering and restricting, in my opinion, what this person in the middle can do with his property. Because it's what somebody else did to their property, who knows when, you know? So I've been looking at individual cases and trying to figure out what line of sight should be. Should you have, in this case here, of coming back to 40, 25, and this guy in the middle, should you be able to look to your left and look to your right and see the whole lake? That some people think you should. Okay. My thought, after struggling with this quite a while, is that your line of sight that's associated with your property should be what goes out in front of you
from your property line.
on your property line. So I'm thinking and maybe tonight's not the night to make a motion to change this or anything else, but I think we really need to have discussion because what we do right now is going to affect the property owners and the lake for the next 50 or 60 years. And what we've done in the last 10 or 15 years, still going to be going forward for quite a while. So I've looked at it. Let me get up to the board over here.
And just as a point of order, while Chuck is getting ready to draw some stuff, for you guys to make an ordinance change like that to the zoning ordinance, you would have to put it on the agenda and advertise public hearing on it. Once you've made your decision, you're making a recommendation to the town council to change that ordinance. Then they have to also do a hearing and review it and decide if they accept the recommendation or not. So tonight you can have some discussion, but if you're inclined to make any kind of change, you're going to want to do that through the regular process.
While Chuck is drawing this out, I just want to let you know, as far as my point of view on this right here, is the fact that the line of sight was purposely put to keep from, I mean, supposed to be protection of the lake, and they want to try and keep everything pretty straight line, even, for whatever purpose.
Everybody, kind of.
Yeah, kind of, you know. But the problem is the line of sight has been more viewed or interpreted, I should say, as a point of view.
Being
And
able to see
When
the
a
whole
point
lake.
of view, it should never be considered in line of sight as far as for an ordinance to be set, because we're not even set for the authority to try and protect somebody's view of the lake. It's more or less the 25-foot setback is set to protect the lake. But our line of sight is in no way protecting anything other than the people that own the house on the other side. If somebody chose, like Chuck was saying, if they wanted to use the back part, that they had a longer lot. They went backward, they wanted to go 40, and somebody else wanted to go 40.
Camera, so
That
it
person in the
can't
middle,
show it.
and his lot's narrower than that guy, he's still stuck at 40.
Okay, so this is just a illustration here. So this would be a line of sight here. This guy could only build up to here, but his 25 feet come across here. You know, my thinking is, and it's what we're discussing, is why can't he come up to 25 feet?
Yeah.
Because this guy's back at 40 feet.
By his choice.
Whoever owned that property made a choice to where they put that, or maybe they had to go by the interpretation at that time. But if you have a line of sight here, this guy's going to be able to see the lake clear over this way. This guy's going to be able to see the lake this way. And this guy's going to be over here to over here.
So your line of sight is not the line for view. It
Right.
shouldn't be for that purpose.
So,
Chuck, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just quickly draw, just so they get an example of what a problem we came into where the lake contoured around.
That's what I was just gonna ask, where do you measure off of on the lake?
well,
It's the high water mark.
the high water mark, but it's the closest point to,
To the foundation. or-
Yeah. yes. So,
For the,
you know, if we have, the lake goes something like this, that's kind of what we're talking about there, right?
right. That's good enough. It'll show.
And
Exactly.
so, the line of sight can be off on here.
Because if you go 25 feet, you'd have the same contoured line.
Right.
Yeah, if it came back just 25 feet from that, from the furthest extent into the lake,
Yeah.
but that might not comply with line of sight. In other
No.
words, it would require that on that peninsula, that owner would have to set the house much, much further back than they would otherwise.
honestly,
Is that
that
right?
person in the middle would actually be restricted from every meeting his setback.
Could be,
coming-
yeah,
coming to-
depending on the depth of the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, what we've done is by using this imaginary line of sight, we've pushed some property owners so far back that they have to get a variance on the rear yard setback,
Because they have to be
25 feet.
20, yeah.
They have to be 25 feet off the back.
And the thing is, they either have to get a variance for the setback that way, or else get a variance to oppose the line of sight. So we are actually creating an ordinance that, well,
An interpretation,
interpretation wise would be forcing a variance.
right,
And I think that's one thing we want to try and get away with, because we're not on the board of zoning field. We don't try and make everything that needs variance.
right. But if those things keep coming up and are still, then this group here, being the legislative group, can work and change our ordinance to meet what it is we want to try to do. But as Jenny said earlier, we have to have advertised for a public hearing, have a public hearing, and before the planning commission can even make a decision on what to do. So all we're in is discussion right now.
Right. But we do want to make sure everybody's on point with what you see and what you think should be done, whether it be opposite of what I am.
Right. So couple of questions I have. When we talk about line of sight, all of those line of sights for those three properties there are not the same, even though you have them drawn according to the rule.
Right.
Well, let's back up a little bit. That is not the rule as
Well-
far as where he's drawing his lines. The line of sight is just for the position of where the house is able to build.
Yeah,
The argument that people are coming back is
they're
that
wanting.
they're wanting that line.
Yeah, they want
They want
to
that
see the
line.
whole lakefront,
Exactly.
shore to shore, both sides.
Right.
And when you're giving somebody that, you're taking away
Away from
someone
somebody
else's.
else.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you do that, this guy here is losing. He's a loser. We had one that was 70 feet back off of the lake. They had one of the on corner long
Mhm.
lots. He was 70 feet back, and he determined where this guy in the middle had his property.
If his property hadn't been
Yes.
70 feet long, he couldn't even build on it.
I also
According
had
to line of
one
sight.
where the house is on, there's a road splitting his property. And the house is up on the hill, furthest back from the lake that you could possibly be in that scenario. And the house next to it is literally on the other side of that road. And that one's been a bone of contention.
1150 South Street. So one of the things that we're seeing, and I've seen it here for the last probably 5 years, but it's just been accelerating in the last 2 years, is that people are buying these lakefront properties, whatever the cost is, 300,000, 500. I've seen some go for 750, and it's a tear down. They tear it down and then they build another $1.5 million, $2 million home. And so that's why the line of sight is now more problem, because we have more people doing that. I would say we've had one Densborn is the one that I can remember in the last year and a half that didn't tear their house down. They added on to the front and added on to the back. And that's just been on the last month.
Yeah.
Everybody else, buy
tear
them, tear them down. I mean,
Yeah. Most of you guys been around long enough to know that you'll see a house on the other side that's bought for 2 million and then put a $3.5 million house back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh,
they are wanting anything that they can get, but at the same time, you're restricting one person from getting everything that he actually is enabled to.
so, I'd like to think about this. And if we want to have a public hearing on it, or if we need to go another month and just have some discussion and thinking, that's okay too. It doesn't make any difference. It's been this way, but I just think we've put a hardship on the people
Oh, definitely.
and we shouldn't be doing that.
Well, not only, and this is the way I do it, I feel like we're putting hardship on some of the homeowners, but I also think we're creating more problems for the BZA. Now, is that wrong for us to consider that?
Well, no,
No,
one of the things, if you look in Indiana Planner's Guide, one of the things they say, if a case keeps coming up to the BZA over and over and over, you need to look at your
Okay.
zoning ordinance to see what's causing that.
Well, and this is what's definitely causing that, correct? I mean, I'm not
Correct.
speaking out of.
and yeah, and what's really creating more problems for our building commissioner
Right,
is the interpretation that other people are taking on that as well.
Yeah.
But we don't have it in black and white far enough to where the ambiguity is not placed into it, and we can't fight ambiguity.
so.
We need to eliminate it.
So hypothetically, could we create an ordinance that said point of view goes from one side of your house to the other,
Straight out.
straight out?
Yeah, I know
mean,
what you're
could-
saying.
Would we be able to create something like that?
I think creating anything that has to do with view, which is a personal preference, is what you want to call it. If we put it in an ordinance, I think it's automatically vague enough to where they could argue the point.
What I'm thinking
I
about
think
is
it would
putting
not-
view in there at all.
You
Okay,
don't want view, the
We
word
know
view
that
should not be in.
These people can't come any closer than 25 feet from the lake. All right. So,
The view is automatic.
the view is on there.
Maybe your question is this line of sight straight out instead of at an angle?
see, I
Yeah.
see to me, there's a big difference between
But what,
a line of sight and a point of view. Like, to
Right.
me, only goes from one side of my dwelling to the other side.
okay, but you're the only one that can affect that. So why do we have
Right.
to have that in the
Okay.
ordinance?
Good point. So if we just go to 25 feet from the shore.
Standard.
Standard,
See, that would be my
and
proposal
if you're back at 70 feet,
far as
that's
my-
your problem.
myself. I think eliminating the line of sight would eliminate something that is there to fight or to argue or to enforce.
Okay,
But if you, the reason for the ordinance is to start with part of your 25 setback is to protect the lake.
which I
And,
agree needs to be protected.
and it needs to be protected. And I think as much of an asset that the lake is for the town of Culver. In that aspect, when you look at it, this is what you're actually doing in your job is protecting an asset of the town because that's developed. And I just feel like a line of sight is the opposite from what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so another thing that occurs to me too is, and Chuck, in your lower illustration there with the sort of the peninsula there, that curve, imagine that that's not the lake and that's a street. We wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Exactly.
25 feet is 25 feet.
We have very few streets that are straight unless they're, in town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most streets around the lake line. So if this was a street down here, then, right, you wouldn't be having the problem. You'd come back from the closest point, 25 feet, and then that's where you can go.
Yeah.
Because you figure if that was a road
If
in
you're
the
not
back,
on the,
it's not
if you're not on
L1,
the lakeside, but you're just
Right.
across the road, this is a moot point.
because that would either be
That'd be a
S1.
good analogy to remember when you cut that to public.
Yeah, and it might arguably affect somebody's view of the lake too, particularly in winter, when the leaves are down. But so what? There's setbacks to setback.
You're saying that if this house here comes up 25 feet, it might affect the views for somebody else? Is that what you're saying?
If somebody
Yeah.
wanted to argue that point.
Yeah, but we don't, that's not a discussion that we ever have except if you're actually have lakefront property.
Right.
We don't even have that conversation if you're across the street.
If it's an L1 across the street, the street is the guideline.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the interesting thing in a neighborhood. You don't have that same,
No,
where my house is placed, compared to my two neighbors, there's nothing on line of sight because I'm not on the lake.
Right. But I mean, if you come down to, if you're gonna try and go with the view, take where Bobby lives right now, I mean, it's been several years ago, but there was a time you walk out in the backyard of your house, you look at the lake, you had a beautiful view. And then over time, the view kept going away, and it's no different than what they're actually trying to fight for when they're on the lake. You know, it's just that one more argument that they've got, that I just don't agree with that argument being strong enough for the owners on each side to eliminate the one in the middle.
Here's a question that I would have about the chart, the drawing. So let's say my property is there. Do you measure the 25 from here, or is it from the closest point?
Closest
Okay,
point.
so 25 might be here
Right,
versus here, it's actually gonna be more like 30 some.
yeah. it-
Okay.
there was some from that.
That makes sense.
But then you take and put those two houses, now let's back over here to your
Setback follows
place.
the lake line, though.
What's that?
The setback follows the lake line though.
Right.
So that house could literally have a angle on the front of it if it wanted to and follow the lake line.
Yeah, it could.
Can be 25.
That's a
So it
good
was
point,
not-
Kevin.
Yeah.
This house could set at an angle, say like this. So he was 25 feet here and house could set across here.
Okay,
And that already creates the line, because of the guy right there by your hand on this side.
Right.
You know, all the way over here, there. You're gonna put him. If those two are 25, now you're gonna use the line of sight, you're actually gonna make him closer than the 25 foot. So your line of sight can create
It's,
the whole problem.
I believe it's creating more problems and more long-term problems than ever.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a non-ending, it's a
It's just
self-producing
gonna-
problem.
Yeah, it's just gonna accumulate.
Since this is informal, Kevin, what are you thinking here?
I tend to agree with you. I think Barry's probably been on long enough to know that this wasn't just made up by the board, though. This was from public input from lake residents. So you're going to get some pushback on this, particularly the ones that had to follow it recently. So it's not, when you go to those meetings, it's always the newbie who bought the new property wants to push the lines, and it's people that have owned longer want to keep the line of sight. I don't disagree, but what we just talked about, there will be a lot of angled front houses that will follow the shoreline going in. They're going to take every square inch they can. That's the way it's going now. But the other thing I thought about when we're talking about this is you don't have to go all the way either. You can still keep that line of sight and then plus a percentage or something like that if you wanted to try and split the baby, mitigate.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I know
It's going to be easy with what you're saying, just go 25 though.
If
the 25 serves the purpose of the ordinances on L1. But when we start creating, like I said, this was a practice that was used, that it wasn't written in the ordinance when it first came into use. And the L1 people, not to say names or whatever, but they liked it and they don't want to use it. But it was never approved by the plan commission to put that in ordinance. It was overlooked when it was added, when it was sent to be approved. I mean, it's legally approved with that in the ordinance.
Right.
But I just want to
So,
legally
where
remove
did the
it,
practice start?
go back to start.
With who's the one what commissioner started that?
Do we need to name that?
The one before me?
The one before you.
Okay.
So,
But it was pretty close to the beginning. It was decided by the board to do that. It wasn't just Russ doing it on his own. So
Okay, we'll go
so
with
can I ask a question? So if the people that were wanting to use line of sight, would they have been thinking that that would limit the amount of homes that were built on the lake?
that.
I mean,
That's
would
a
that,
catch 22.
they were protecting their view, I
probably not
think,
the
is that
best,
Yeah.
probably their view.
at BZA, that's
So-
what they
bought the pretty
we've
good.
had a lot of
okay.
homeowners.
So it's not
show
so
up.
much, I don't want somebody next to me. I just
Yeah.
don't want their house to.
I don't want to be
their
looking
view.
at their house when I'm trying to look.
And I'm just curious, how many more how many more dwellings there are on the lake now than there were 20 years ago. In my 17 years here, it just seems like the number of homes has exploded.
As far as on the lake,
The size,
I-
the combinations.
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many more that was taken down and replaced, but I'm not sure how many, but I know there's some additions added.
What Kevin said here is we're combining, a lot of these have two lots, we'll have the owner combine them so
Yeah,
that
so
they can
that's
build a bigger
two
or wider house. They don't go
one
across the property.
replacement.
Yeah.
So we've eliminated some that way. It looks like there's more being built, but it's just more being torn down.
Yeah, there's more
Yeah.
square.
There's more square footage on the lake, yeah.
Chester, you or Wayne have any comments on this?
No, it's just the conversation is can go both ways. I'm still, it's each one of these properties possibly could have its own conditions and needs and that's, I say that's why we have a BZA to help make those decisions for what is right for that particular part of L1. But I think there needs to be some ability for movement there.
Okay, Wayne, you have anything?
No, I don't think there's any perfect situation with this. I think you shouldn't probably, I kind of think that you have two houses on either side, a house that's set back, they want to rebuild it and move it closer. I mean, it should be closer than what the other two houses neighbors to them. I mean, I got kind of the feeling on that. I mean, so their line of sight's not going to be any different than their neighbors is going to be. So it's not really
Right.
infringing on anybody. So.
Yeah.
Wayne, what would you do in a case where the neighbor on your left side is 25 feet off the lake, your neighbor on the right side is 60 feet off the lake? You're going to have to that 25 feet to 60 feet, so you aren't be able to utilize your whole property.
No closer than the farthest house.
No closer than the farthest house. Okay. That's a thought. That's a thought. I'll think
Farthest,
about that.
farthest from the lake?
Or we-
Or the close?
There's option
This-
3.
This guy's 25 feet, this guy's 40 feet. He's saying you could come 25. If this guy's 30, 35, and this guy's
Yeah.
40, you can go up to 35.
That, I mean, I see Wayne's point, and on a straight street, it goes straight up like a swimming pool, I think that works. But it's still gonna, I think, be unfair to the person whose property extends into.
I don't know if you could come up with a formula to split the difference. Yeah, you'll get extra.
But, I mean, to me, if a guy is trying to go further from the lake, he's trying to automatically establish the view that nobody can infringe on other than a certain point. So he's trying to use other property, his view. And that's what we had.
Yeah, I just got a building permit that was approved. I approved it yesterday and came back. This guy's bought a property for $750,000 or $800,000. Tearing it down to $3 million home. I mean, we see these things
All the time
all the time.
on this lake.
You know, when we get to S1, R1,
Yeah.
where you can, how close you can go. Choose not to go that far, close to the road, but
Yeah.
those tell you exactly where that's at, because most of the roads are straight.
Because, right? I think will pass as a whole nother ball of wax for what people.
Here's the thing, this group here is the one that passes it. Public input may be against it.
Like your council.
And the council's got to
Well,
pass
I
ultimately.
mean, we approve it to send forward to the council,
Knowing full well that same public's gonna show up at the
Right.
council meeting.
Yeah.
because there has to be a public hearing there too.
Yes.
So,
So there'd be a lot of, there could be a lot of unhappy.
Yeah, anyone who gets vocal here is gonna get vocal there.
Yeah.
Like when we did
And
windmills.
just for a little information for you guys to come on. Because we did a sign ordinance. And it took a little over a year just for signs that were put in town. And we had, and I use this description as pitchforks and torches. When people came in over sign ordinances. So
yeah.
You're not
whatever
always-
You guys,
you're not always the favorite person in town, believe me.
whatever you guys recommend to go to the town council, none of you guys are elected. You know?
Yeah.
But those people, they have.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Oh, yes.
It's different.
Right.
And I get the job of going to the both meetings to the same.
They
I do
start
too.
working at council members. For your meeting.
Somebody trying to talk here?
No, I. That's you.
So that's, so we,
So I got just a couple of thoughts. I think that one, it might be helpful, Chuck, if we had, you know, a draft ordinance or draft ordinances, alternatives to actually look at with the wording. I think the other thing
Like
is,
options even?
yeah. I mean, something concrete, some words on paper.
Yeah.
I think is we gotta vote with what we think is the right thing to do.
correct.
And the elected leadership
You know,
will either approve or they'll reject and give us guidance on
Yeah, they'll,
why they thought.
what they didn't agree with, it will come back to us again and we'll have to go through again
if they don't agree.
if they don't
Right,
agree.
if they don't
Yeah,
agree.
and say when
I
they
don't know
don't
how hard
agree.
it is for you to do, but I think it would give them some act. If you could tell them how many BZA variances have been given on this issue.
Because
For what you said, if it's
Yeah.
being changed enough times. But I don't think the BZA very rarely get them to the 25-foot line. They would give them some adjustment, but still, that would give them some fodder on that when you're dealing with the public. We're fighting a certain time. Something that comes in.
So this is still in the formative stages, so.
Right, but I mean, purpose for discussing this is that everybody be more informed as far as what we're looking at. Whether it be next month, or whatever, but during your term, sure, and other things, just to give you a little information, not as far as the light of sight, but Jenny and Chuck and myself have been looking over the ordinances, and we're even looking at right now with the as far as zonings that we've got, you know, you got the L1, you R1, R2, C2, C1, right down the line, S1. And we're talking about adding zoning, you know, maybe like an R3 even or something like that, L2. Pieces that we've got. And it's kind of like getting ordinances or zoning set more like the terrain or whatever that we've got, because our lake properties have pretty well been established all the way around. Some of them aren't fitting what the ordinance calls for to be an L1 lot. But they're on record.
The schools have larger buildings, so we were thinking of having an institutional or educational zone, because obviously they end up in BZA or literally every building probably.
Yeah.
And
there's
you're
no
looking
reason
at the
for that.
academy as well, which you guys know as far as what the academy's been adding, when you're talking about height alone, how many variances that they were looking at in the past year.
Well, they've got, Robertson Building, Mortensen, another Roberts, and also the Leadership Center.
Yeah, they got the 5.
Yeah.
And every one of them requires
Every
a height,
project.
because they're still under a 35-foot height
So
limit.
they should have their own zone.
But I mean, every time they apply for a height variance, it's never questioned, but it's still a process that they have to pay for. You know, and it shouldn't be, because we're still holding a zoning that doesn't even fit the whole criteria, you know?
So that's something.
I think we need to see something in writing to, you know, because that's where it's going to be anyway, in the ordinance. Let's see what that looks like, and if it's any more usable than what you have now.
Okay, and we'll disagree with that, Chester. We're just trying to do some exploring right now to see how
Yeah.
everybody
Okay.
at the temp. And then you're right. The next thing
Yeah.
we need to have,
We're trying to get the new
Sample.
members as well as some of us old members to understand what we've got facing us ahead.
I think technically the zones have this, only L1 has line of sight, right?
Right.
And it's not, it's just a written little blurb
Yeah.
in L1.
But it's drawn out in
So-
L1. It's,
Technically, if you were removing it from L1 and just going with setback,
Just remove it.
it's that simple a change. If you wanted to change though, like on the West Shore versus East Shore, and you want to have like zone 1 is East Shore, zone 2 is West Shore, zone 3 is north, zone 4 is south, you could set your setbacks based on whichever of those zones.
right,
Mhm.
particular with
Because-
each zone.
Obviously, there's smaller lots on the West Shore than on the East Shore, say. But right now, it's just a matter of removing language.
Yeah,
Because it's not written like some of our town ordinances where you have whereas, blah, 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 whereas, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So it's really just removing a blurb from
Yeah.
L1.
yeah, because
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
from what I see, it would just, to me, it would be removing the phrase that says where property immediately adjacent on either side of the lot is already developed, the principal structures required setback shall be determined by a line drawn between the farthest extension of the adjacent structures, including any decks or raised patios. That would just need to be removed, and it's just 25 feet from high water mark. Is,
no closer than.
yeah, no closer.
I mean, yeah,
Anything else?
I don't think so. If you guys got any questions, anything, I mean, as far as any of this, as far as we're coming up, but I mean, I know we're gonna have plenty of time to discuss them, and it's gonna take some time as well. If you want to move on to the
Yeah, I've
building
got
commissioner's report.
a couple things to check your temperature on and check me. We've got, road goes through here, 20. From here. House comes up and sets past, sets into the right of way. Okay? They want to tear this house down. Should they still be allowed to build into that right of way? That's where it sets now.
There's no way that
They
I
want
see
to
that it
stay-
should be allowed to be
They
put
want to
back.
stay on the same footprint though.
Yeah, if they don't, the thing, here's the thing, is if they don't stay on this same footprint, if they eliminate this that's over, then do they have to come and get a variance for what they're doing? And then if they do, then they've got to meet the rest of the criteria.
And
You
it's
know-
a tear down.
Honestly,
I thought that's the way it was, but I'm just.
my opinion, since we're not voting, My opinion is if the house is built, it's not just non-conforming, it's non-legal, I guess you might even say.
It's
Because you
not
can't,
compliant, it doesn't-
I don't think that you could ever get a variance to build on the right of way, can you? I mean, it's just not
I
buildable.
can tell you, you'll get nothing in town and I
And,
don't think you get.
and if you're trying to use the existing footprint, you can't. I mean, just by verbiage alone.
But if
so-
if you detract or deduct from that footprint that's already there.
That is a
then-
variance.
What?
That's already a variance, right?
Well, if it comes out here and you just bring it back to there, is it a variance or not?
You're changing the footprint. So
Well-
you're no longer, all right, in this particular house, they're looking at getting, they already got a variance to go up, right?
They were into the BZA, they're gonna tear it down and go up. Well, we went out, was it this week or last week, and looked at it. My first thought is, yeah, just build it on the same footprint. But the more that I looked at this, the more I delved into it and explored it. They can't build on the right, over the right.
So, I'm sorry. you were gonna-
No, go ahead.
So I was just gonna ask a question like, how could the BZA have even the authority to grant a variance like that? What's the difference between building into the public right of way or building on somebody else's property?
They can't, the BZA can't give a variance for that. At the time, the BZA
Right.
gave them the height and build on the same footprint.
Right.
We did not have our survey.
Right.
We required them to get a survey. When we got the survey,
Okay,
that's when we found out
They were-
this was over.
okay,
Looking on GIS, it looked like they were good.
yeah, but,
But once they got the survey, which, and that was part of their approval. And that's why when they got the survey, they called us immediately
right.
to say, hey, what should we do here?
So-
But see, I'm not leaning toward making them get a variance because I've less on that.
Under those circumstances, is it new information that wasn't known at the time that the BZA met to give them the variance that they requested? Would that be, have to be re-evaluated or whatever, come back? BZA would call them back for another review.
That's a possibility. It's something that I hadn't thought of.
I mean, I think that would actually be the actual process that the BZA would want to proceed with. Formally, the proper way to do it, I'm saying.
But if you build on the same footprint, you don't have, you can tear it down and build on the same footprint,
But
as long as you don't go any higher or whatever. You can build on the same footprint. So you don't have to get a variance.
right,
But
right.
how can you ever build on somebody else's property? Which in
You
this
can't.
case,
You
Yeah,
can't.
That's why we're not going to allow them to do
Okay.
that. But the question is, do they have to come back and get a variance because they're making their building smaller?
What would their setback? Is that the setback,
The line.
the line?
I would say no.
I mean,
Otherwise, you'd be winning the BZA over and over and over.
I think the whole purpose for your ordinance is to require a BZA to look at any changes other than that, but I don't think we should have everything just for the BZA to look at.
Right.
And under these conditions, that might be something that actually our attorney might need to look at as far as procedure on that.
So we can touch base with them.
I mean, I do think that would be the proper course. But my thoughts was, if it's gonna have to be changed by even the building standard, part of going back on the same footprint, then it should be considered able to build on that same footprint. They would have to move it.
Yeah, where's the precedence? Where's the precedence? Which has more precedence, like forcing.
Does the size of the lot allow them to move the house when they rebuild it? Does it support the setback?
No, they can't move forward. Where they built over the right of way, they can't move it forward because they're 16 feet off of the lake now.
Oh,
They're hardly off the road.
Yeah, they're
Right.
barely off the road.
It's one of those really tight lots.
And is the house already up?
What?
Is the house up?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay,
There's an existing house that they want to replace.
right.
okay,
And they want to make sure that they're doing it right before they tear it down, and
good.
they're doing
They're
it.
doing right, but it's, just came into something that they weren't aware of and we weren't aware of.
Right. And I don't know that we've ever had one like this.
Not when you're tearing down, we've got some that are over the line, cases that was, I know one was tore down.
Yeah, we have some where the right of way goes all the way up to the front door.
Right here.
Well, you don't want to look at my garage.
This is what- Yeah,
Well,
Fine.
a lot of this stuff was 70, 80 years ago. I mean,
you're exactly right. I mean,
Yeah, and that's the reason we had the ordinance to build back on the same footprint to allow that. But
I would say if they choose to tear it down and the lot don't support the size of a building you can build on it, then they're out of luck, or they don't tear it down. I mean,
you see what you're saying, Wayne?
Have a nine house because it's built over the, yeah,
Leave it. Don't tear it down.
yeah, if they don't tear down,
If they just leave what's there,
right, it's
There's
in
nothing,
violation.
there's nothing that you can actually do though. It's on the right of way, existing. It's a lot of record, so it was probably there before the right of way.
well, at some point, somebody approves something, but
Right.
I would think when the house was built, we probably still had a gravel road around there and we hadn't taken our right of way, the width of our right of way from that.
It may not even been a road.
Right.
I mean,
If they tear it down or rebuild and just square that off.
but is, have to be, on that,
They already. have clearance.
they got the gangers to go up,
Right.
the height.
I don't know.
Yeah, at
Well-
least if they squared off and don't go on the right of way, they made it more compliant.
So,
They do make it more compliant, but you'd have an issue that you're going for any house to change it, even though they want to build on the same footprint, be able to change it for whatever reason. For a corner to make more room
If
for
the
one side,
reason's right of way. it would be
Because it-
acceptable.
but they would be making it more compliant, but you're still building on the same footprint, but they want to change it. So you're gonna say, well, it's making it more compliant, so you let them do it.
In the case of right of way, yeah, why not? If they're doing it just because they want to add a bathroom or something, that's a different thing than squaring off the right of way, right?
Yeah.
If it seems like a good legal reason to make that minor change, then shouldn't that just be?
Well, before
That
next
would-
meeting, we'll touch base with the attorney and
Yeah, I think touching base, and evidently it's definitely a BZA issue.
okay, so now the next question is, same property,
and this is 584 or 594?
94.
590, okay.
It's the last house before you get to the landing,
This is the road here.
the green house, right before the slab.
And the property starts here. This is the setback. Property comes in, the house is built here. This particular house comes over and just drops like that and goes to the lake. Okay? And the house now follows this somewhere here. Where and how do we measure 35 feet on a house?
Still gonna be the average between the two, so you got your from there.
oh, per
what,
height.
and that height,
So are you coming down from the lowest point or are you going from the highest points?
you go average.
Mhm.
So
So
you just angle it off?
you,
and take the
you can
average?
draw a straight line from the top corner down there to the bottom corner like that. And then from the very middle He's ready to go up to 35 feet.
35 feet.
That'd be your average grade. Now, if it had the head set back,
That's not how your ordinance reads it, by the way.
how's it read?
So it basically says to establish grade, you have three options.
3 options.
And it lists those as A, B, C, almost like a bulleted list. So when I read it and the architect read it, it was, you can pick one of these three. One of those three says that you can establish the grade
4 corners.
from the roadside and the front of the house and not the average of this. Another one of the options, there's 3 options.
B and C, she's exactly right.
So I'm reading it as an editor who just goes by words and formatting. And I'm like, oh, you can pick one of these 3. The architect did the same thing. So he'd like to establish it from here, of course. Because if he averages it, he can't get 9 or 10-foot ceilings on the interior. So
Yeah,
I
I think the
told
verbiage
Chuck
was messed
that
up on that.
if
Bad.
you read that ordinance,
That, the verbiage is supposed to, like if it was on the road and straight across, then that would actually be your average, because it wouldn't be an average to be found.
I'm just saying.
I
that
know.
If you read your own language.
I didn't realize that it had been rewritten that way.
And even the fact that it says ABC instead of step 1, 2, 3, because like, if you're reading a document, it says, oh, establish the grade this way. 1, do this. 2, do that. Instead, it's like, here's different ways you can establish the grade, ABC. That's like a bulleted list. Pick one.
Yeah,
So
and
from,
it should have never been, because it had never been like that before. Kevin will tell you, it has never been that ABC. It has always been
It's
2
wacky.
different ways of actually establishing grade, and that's whether you went from the corners, but
Chuck,
it's
do you have a
especially
copy
from
of
the
that?
high water mark back to where it's
the
in
guy
front of your
had
house,
a copy of
back
it
of the
in
house,
front of us.
an average between it. It's supposed to be an average.
Well, that's how you're practicing it. That's how our BZA is practicing
With
it.
the,
Sure.
with the AB,
They average it.
oh, the average. That's the way it was always
But
established. because-
someone looking at the ordinance could point to,
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
but it also says that whenever it's contested, whatever, the building commissioner has the authority to make a decision is where it's at.
That guy may have pulled it off the website, because his copy.
I was hoping it wasn't.
Color on that.
It'll take me a few minutes to find it. So.
That had to be in a change, because I'm telling you what, that is new to me.
Is it possible that guy was looking at an old ordinance?
No, definitely not old.
I'm talking about the architect. That would have-
Oh,
No, he wasn't.
For me, it's definitely a language issue and an interpretation issue.
That's interesting.
that's under your,
Bringing it up, the way that you saw it.
Yeah, I agree with the architect, and I don't know our zoning ordinance as well.
that'd be under your, under the site development
I've been
plan.
in BZA meetings where they're establishing it, while you guys are talking about the average. But if you go to the ordinance, you don't have to establish it that way.
Oh, height restrictions and establishing grade.
What channel that on?
123. Natural grade on properties with existing structures.
Yeah, development standards.
Yep, ABC.
That's page 123.
The one where it talks
123,
about
124.
you can do it from the front or the road or whatever it was. That one almost sounds like, and by the way, you can do it this way if you want to. It's kind of how that reads to me.
So the one thing that kind of, and I haven't read through all of it, but kind of stands out for me, it says, under letter A, natural grade must be established prior to demolition of the existing structure.
Yeah. And then it's got for vacant property. Property owner shall establish building footprint on site by extending outside edge wall lines. In other words, it's vacant, you gotta mark where your building is proposed. And then you go, natural grade can be established either across diagonal corners, highest to lowest, to the center of the building. There is no A, B, and C on this.
On what one? On yours?
Yeah, right now it's part of, it's got ABC, but it says on the ABC as far as that one, it's got, where have you got your ABC other than for,
It starts on page 123
yeah,
at the bottom. Point number 2 says tear downs.
yeah,
Natural grade on properties. A, natural grade must be established prior to demolition. Okay,
okay,
and if not, then it outlines the plan to do it. B, property owner's discretion, the natural grade may be established as ground elevation at the roadside entrance to the existing structure prior to demolition.
See, that implies you have the discretion to do it how you want,
Mhm.
if you ask me.
it says,
C says the natural grade may be determined at the midpoint of the wall of the house, the greatest grade change being nearly perpendicular.
Maybe, not
the
most.
slope is possible.
Yes,
So the language there is too
Yeah.
optional, in my opinion.
So you're saying there's two options,
Yeah,
not three?
well, maybe 2 options. It's your discretion according to that.
So the
And
planning
when you
commission shall use this best
maybe-
judgment to determine the
Maybe
existing
it's
grade.
not.
It's like saying you might want to do it this way, or you may not want to do it this way. You have our permission to pick which one you want.
It's always been up to the building commissioner to establish grade before it's ever, the site plans
Where
even.
does it say that though?
No, it's
It
always been
could
that way.
say that somewhere, which is fine, but I'm just saying,
I know,
in a court of law, how we're practicing it would not hold up.
yeah, and that's the reason I say all this stuff needs to be looked at. Cause that's the
So
first time I even
why
knew that.
when you do line of sight, if these are 2 big issues we want to fix quickly, I do those separate from the hundreds of changes we've been making, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Cause I mean, this is one that's probably very important. The line of
Yeah.
sight is very important.
right.
Yeah,
Those are, this is the sort of thing I do want to get out front.
and this architect would like to go with that other discretionary option. And technically, right now, he can,
Yeah.
in my opinion, based on that, and
Well, yeah,
what I'm reading there.
So it does say natural grade shall be determined to the existing grade at the center of the proposed building footprint. At or as near to the center as can be reasonably determined and agreed upon by the building commissioner and property owner. So that's saying he has the right to make that determination. Following A, B, or C, right?
Yeah. So they're
Way
gonna
it reads
pick
to me.
B and say, well, we'd like you to do it from the road.
Yeah. Yeah, why wouldn't the property owner do it at B every time? That's roadside.
Right,
That gives them the greatest
type.
height.
so if I'm reading this correctly, when you tear down, it automatically, you should automatically then be going to the vacant lot rules.
No, this is,
So,
It's not even supposed to be tore down. I mean, if you tear it down, leave an empty lot, of course you can get a, you know, a demolition permit, whatever, and tear it down, leave an open lot, then come back later and then get established grade set. But whatever means is for a vacant lot then. I mean, it seems like we're opening too many doors with too many options.
Well,
well, they're already
Let me-
open.
I know.
let me.
And that's what I'm
push-
saying,
let me
that's what
push
we're
back
doing
on
right here.
that a bit.
Second.
So, I mean, in your example, Chuck, I think we're thinking about a lakefront property where the sits way above the lake.
Yeah.
Okay, let's reverse the situation. Let's suppose that that low point on the right of your diagram is a street.
Okay.
So to me, the measuring from the street makes a great deal of sense. Why couldn't a property owner, if that is the street and you're building into a hillside and the street is lower, what's wrong with letting that property owner go up to 35 feet from the street?
You wouldn't have enough cases there that you're really worried about, but yeah, I know what you're saying too. You wouldn't have that problem too often.
Yeah, because most of them that we're seeing slope to the lake, just like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to we're slow
Right,
from the road.
right. Yeah, because if it went the other way, very good point, if it went the other way,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
you would,
road, that's where you would measure from, 35.
Right?
I mean, that's a good point, but I think this,
But we've already got issues where we've got complaints as far as some of the L1 houses being 48 feet from the lakeside, because you got a 35-foot height set because of the elevation.
because they went from the top.
Right, they went through the middle
or
or
they
whatever.
went, yeah, they go to the middle and they can still get a 40,
40-something foot
40, 40.
lakefront view of the house is 40-something feet. And if it's coming from the roadside, now you can get even more.
Right,
Well, okay, and so what?
Yeah, devil's advocate, why is that?
So
different
what?
from the Sightline.
Huh?
Devil's advocate, why is that different from the
Yeah.
sightline? You're arbitrarily limiting them at that point, so.
Well, I know what you're saying, but I mean, if you're allowed 35 feet from the road
Okay,
and it's come from the road and you got the lake on the other side, yeah, you're looking at the backyard being 35 feet and the front yard being 40-something feet. If you're not, don't have the road and you're going from just the hillside, then you're still gonna have to be changing from what you're requiring. I mean, you're given options is what I'm saying. And you're saying, why is that a problem, right?
yeah, I'm saying, why is that a problem other than somebody doesn't like to look at it?
This is the way we're practicing it at the BZA, is not giving the options. We're basically saying at the
But
BZA,
the
you
B-
have to average the low.
But the BZA is still going by the way it was always written before. And now these things here, as far as, I've never seen
Risky
this
on BZA,
as an
but I
option
think-
going by the roadside at
Yeah.
all. I've never seen this. I ain't
But
saying it
it's
wasn't
there.
there.
it's there.
I know it's here now. I mean, it's the Bible right now.
That's the law.
Well, and I didn't see it as clearly or understand it as well. Jenny and I have been talking most of the week about that, and that's the way the architect was, he wants our interpretation of it so that once they do it,
They don't get in trouble.
they're not getting in trouble. Just like it's building over the right of way, they tell them you can't do that,
No, yeah.
This same property has
The right of way.
both issues.
Yeah.
It's an interesting meeting.
Glad you came.
It's.
I'm learning a lot about our ordinance.
Building that was 120 feet up.
Chuck, did they take
It
out
went
the,
by the high school road.
there used to
Where the
be
Spanish villa
a
is.
minimum,
Yes.
a maximum you could
You
go
could have
down also.
building way over.
Right.
Did that get taken out too?
Yeah.
It's completely different from the way the ordinance was. Well, we didn't.
I thought
discuss
you did
that.
have wasn't it 15 feet or 20 feet down from the,
I think it was 15 feet.
15 feet is what it was. I thought it was still in here. I thought Chuck and I had found it.
I don't know.
Because we were talking about maybe we should reduce that.
You could end up with a 7-story house
Oh, yeah.
on the lakeside.
Like the villa?
Walkout.
If they wanted to do a full walkout
3
down, you're
stories
right.
Tall on the
I mean,
roadside.
look at Dr. Deary, if he'd decided, we had discussed that before. We was talking about, as far as an option of reducing that drop off on the front. Because they were talking about 4 stories on the
That's why
lakeside.
it is good to have new people come on who have to study the ordinance.
Yeah.
'Cause I was clueless about this until the architect put it right in front, and, because I'm listening to all the BZA meetings where you're establishing grade,
Mhm.
and I'm looking at the ordinance going, oh.
But they're doing it the same way that I would have been doing it for 22 years.
Right.
And I didn't realize, Kevin evidently didn't realize this either. And he's like me, been a builder here since he was a baby.
So are we thinking that Ralph Booker added language at the time?
You know, and I've come up with that conclusion or assumption or whatever, because this is where so many changes came from.
Do we need to
I
take
I
a
don't
copy
put
of
his
the
name on it, but
old ordinance
Yes.
and go paragraph by paragraph and compare it to what's
Yes.
actually in our ordinance?
Yes,
Because that's something I could work on.
at least in these areas that are causing us problems.
yeah,
Where can we get a copy of the old one?
We would
That's a
have one
thing.
here.
There's
It
some-
it would have been public
Yeah.
record. There's a filed copy somewhere.
and we should.
Probably
I should have had
just-
some, but I turned in my pages anytime the ordinance were changed and traded the old pages in, and we got rid of them so they wouldn't be mixed up with the
I'm
new.
sure we could locate one. I probably even have one somewhere because
I've got one,
it changed while. I was on
2001.
council. Well, that's probably pretty accurate though.
But I know there was, under the 2001, we didn't use the established grade the way we're talking now. We used something else. I don't know whether
I
they
feel
measured from a
safer
certain
going
point.
back to like 2007 or 8. Because that would have been my first year on council, I think it was 7.
Well, I know
And
it
it
was,
did have updates even before this Ralph Booker update.
Yeah.
So
because
some,
it was during Russ's tenure as far as that goes,
yeah.
not putting any blame. I
Yeah.
don't mean to sound like that.
No,
But
we
I
had
know
changed.
because it was brought up, huh?
Russ and I did drawings that were included to show.
Well, remember,
Russ?
They're still in here.
remember
Russ,
the committee we had?
they're still in here.
Yes.
Because, I mean, that was an issue that Russ was having a problem because trying to get this established under the way it was written. And so it was written out this to where you had those 4 corners established the grade.
Yeah, page 126, 127.
Shows the drawings.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's gonna be interesting
Okay.
is to somehow we got tracked down.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go through and, do a paragraph by paragraph check like a proofreader would.
Yeah.
And see what I can find, if there are more differences. I mean, because maybe some of these things were still in the old one. Do we know for a fact that that wasn't in the old one? And no one ever paid attention to it. I don't know.
See, from here to the bottom point here, it's 49 feet.
Mhm.
And that's based off of a 36-foot average.
Middle there
Here.
is one. And this is,
It just should be 35 and a half, basically the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
so those
But
are,
that's where that's been
Those are
established.
still in
in
there.
the grade,
Really sad.
It shows
architect who picked
A,
up
B,
on
and C,
where
or
I'm
A,
some of
A1, and
them.
A2, which
Play
means,
the game, trying to get everything they can out of it.
Yeah.
well, he just wants to give his client
Well,
the
and
best
surety,
possible.
yes.
But he brought it to our attention so he'll do it however we tell him, and the homeowner will do it however we tell her.
Yeah,
They're-
they were
they
kind
just
about the
want-
fact that it was
yeah.
sort of open for interpretation. And maybe there's a slight compromise there where, I don't know, they get the 2 or 3 feet or whatever because they technically could.
It's good
I
to
don't
get
think
this
we-
stuff figured out. It's somebody that's amicable and
Yeah,
not somebody that's trying to fight you over it.
yeah. I mean, she'd like 9-foot ceilings instead of 8-foot in that scenario. And technically she could get her 9-foot ceilings based on that. But Chuck does have the one line that you were reading. There is some ability to work with them to establish that grade. But it sounds like we need to find a copy of the previous ordinance before the county updates and do a paragraph by paragraph.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can look into that for you.
You're saying that's like 2007, 2008?
That's when I went on council. There was one update, regular update round, probably
Yeah.
4 or 5 years in, 2011, 12-ish. And then there was the county update round. Because we had
That's
the
been around
windmill,
2011, I
we
would think.
we had the
2011, yeah.
windmill updates in there and some other stuff before it moved to the
Right.
county.
and there was
I
some,
remember voting on those where you guys would send us a recommendation.
well, I know one of them was a time that we were trying to get the 15-foot setback on L1
Mhm.
side yard.
And that was when we had formed the committee. That was early in my
I know that
first
was-
council term.
That was changed
A long
to,
time ago.
percentage wise according to the law. So I mean, some lake properties might require 12 feet setbacks on the side due to the size of the lot. And if it's not a certain size, then it'd be 10 foot.
This says that Culver zoning ordinance, and this is in your book, front page there, says effective 2010, last revised 10/28 and 19.
Yeah.
So 2010 is when that came in.
That makes sense. It's about the time. when
That is about right.
many-
And I know that the ordinances that we did as far as the other, that, actually it was after this was done. Because those pages were changed out of this book.
Is this still the property at 594? Or a different one?
Same one.
Yeah,
Huh.
had to be issued.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of slope on that property.
What?
There's not a whole lot of slope on that property, is there?
Not really. Well, it might be on, out at the very front of the house, it might drop down that area
Yeah,
down here.
yeah, it's practically right close.
Yeah. But they're not actually far up on it, because I mean, the ground landing, everything on that side, you know, all this way
Yeah,
down
'cause
through
it's
here.
right up against the road.
Yeah,
You can see why it's in the right of way partially.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, because the road turns right into the property.
There's
I
not-
mean, basically,
There's
it's the
hardly
corner.
any hillside to build into.
If the road didn't have a curve in it, they could have got away with it. Straighten the road up.
Okay.
Any more thoughts on what we're talking about here?
The only other thing on that is impervious.
Yeah,
But it was how much over before?
It's solid cement, right?
And it's,
Yeah.
there's probably about 15% green space.
yeah. I mean,
But building it up is not gonna create any more problem other than putting the roof line, water runoff. Total Lake, they didn't have somewhere for it to go.
Right. I mean, we'll have to put
So I had to put
basins.
basins inside, up on the
Yeah,
west side.
they're probably 85%. I just did a quick calculation. That's what I came up with.
And nothing can be done about that though.
I
No.
mean,
Green Road.
Huh?
yeah,
Green Road.
I don't know, it's just in terms of like health of the lake, that's a lot bigger concern to me than height. It's impervious surface next
Yeah.
to the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The height gives us more problems, I can tell you that.
Yeah, but we cut that corner off. That doesn't even add no impervious or pervious to it. That changing it.
But if we allow them to go from the roadside, they'll have a 45-foot house on the lakeside. We have some that don't go from the lakeside, but are still in the 42, 45-foot range on the lakeside.
Oh, easily.
Just going the way we have been doing it.
I know there's been back and forth as far as what people have come in and either be complaints or this is what they want, either way. But on that lake frontage, when you're talking 45 to 50 feet, it just, I don't know.
I know, I
I'm
understand.
surprised you haven't had more people point out this particular height thing. Because they go looking to increase the height and it, I mean, I'm surprised we haven't had more people in the BZA meetings pointing out that option.
But I'm sure that was never intended to be a multiple options. I think it was just a,
Gotta find the old ordinance and see
I
if there's
know.
anything in there, otherwise.
Because-
It doesn't matter at this point, it needs to be corrected.
it just needs to be corrected. I mean, as far as where it came from,
Unfortunately, the
doesn't
one
matter.
that's Brought it up is kind of, you gotta give them what the ordinance says.
Whatever it is right now, you gotta go with. You can't,
Well,
I mean, it is,
Take
it's,
that
you know,
away and give him his little feet of height that he has,
I mean, look what we got into over here.
but only give him, don't give him 10 and 12-foot ceilings, give him his 9 feet versus 8.
If they want to go 10-foot ceiling, they go on a story and a half, so they go, that's their problem, not mine.
Well, I will figure out how to reply back to him
Yeah,
and just keep you guys informed. But those are some things that I think are immediate problems that we can work on and make those changes faster.
and, yeah. And only because of my time on here, knowing the importance of addressing this right away. Yes. If we're done with this, Chuck, if you want to present the technical review committee findings,
On,
before we discuss the technical review committee really is all, we don't have minutes.
no, not unless you took them.
I didn't
We
take-
have a recording, but don't have any
Yeah.
minutes.
Oh, the Lakeshore Drive property
It was,
with Marar and the Skyline
yeah,
property.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah, the 415. Like
Basically, we gave Marar
and then,
permission to apply for their PUD and come to you guys.
yeah, because then, yeah, and then the house out here. at
And
Allies.
they applied today for
Can
their
we just,
PUD.
can we just back up here?
Oh, didn't they?
Just lost. I want to make sure I capture this for the minutes. So what are we talking about now?
415 Lakeshore.
And is this the technical review committee?
They came in for their second review
Second
Right.
view,
of
Okay.
their PUD,
number PUD.
our site plan.
So today they applied for it. And now we can go and next month look at bring that before the planning
February
commission.
meeting,
Okay.
it'll probably be on the agenda to be addressed that.
It just has to be advertised.
And it has to be advertised
Right.
and will be a public hearing.
Correct.
Which means Karen needs to get advertising out.
Next month will be a busier month because we have that coming to us, the PUD. Plus, we're going to have two property splits that are going to be coming too.
Two, you said, two property splits?
Yes.
Yeah, replat. I like the combinations better. I do.
So that's about all I've got. I think I've upset everybody, so.
Thank God.
Now you just implied that there's a workload coming.
Yes.
But,
It's a fair warning.
yeah. But we do need these tech review committees meetings to come before where the plan commission can actually approve for whatever decision that tech review committee come up with that recommendation. We either want to change it or not.
Technical review committee, we need to have somebody take notes and add minutes.
Yeah, we will. I mean,
That should be one of you.
yeah, it won't be official because it's got to come before us and that's.
Yeah.
Chuck went to
Much
bring-
more comfortable if the planning commission member took minutes for that.
I mean, it's either Barry or Chester.
You didn't get much choice there.
That's,
Who used to do them?
Jonathan did.
Okay. That's fair. I'll do it if you want me to.
That would be fantastic. 'Cause you wouldn't want to read my notes.
I'd want to do it during the meeting like Don does, so it can just
That
go
would
on.
be good.
Otherwise it'll never happen.
Well, I mean,
that'd be perfect as far as I'm concerned.
And then I'll email it out to plan commission and Chuck.
I'd try and get you a raise if you do it, but
No, that's quite okay.
She's making.
They're not.
but no, I mean, as far as our position here with what the technical review committee does or what's even been sent to the BZA, I think the planning commission should really have an insight.
Mhm.
And I don't want those conditions that you were talking about earlier, Beth.
Are the previous review committee recordings located somewhere specific?
I have to ask Jonathan about that.
We probably should do back minutes for the ones.
Wouldn't
I've
doubt it.
attended.
I mean, probably wouldn't be a bad idea as far as
I think the
actual
ones Jonathan has are in that book right there.
in the planning commission book. I think he did put minutes in
Yeah,
here.
if you want to pass
I'm
that over.
talking about the ones we've done since I
Oh, the one that we've
arrived.
done.
Are those recordings somewhere
Probably not.
or notes?
No.
We have notes because we put them in with, I input the notes onto the building permit.
Okay,
So we have notes on the building.
okay. That's good.
What are they proposing? It's gonna be multifamily units to 415?
It's gonna be 7 condo units, essentially,
2 in one building and 5 in the other building.
3 and 4.
Is there 3 and 4?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was looking at it
And
today.
there's golf cart, storage on site and parking spaces.
For kind of the team picture.
Yes. There'll be, 7 total units, so 7 golf cart storage units as well, that are just like small garages, I guess. 7 parking spots in the parking lot. There's an additional, I think, 8 on the road in front of the building and on the side.
Yeah, all I got is for the December tender review committee, just the
And it's
agenda.
front
for
of
you.
this.
I probably need a copy of
This
the
is-
minutes.
You guys will get copies of this for the next meeting. That's what it's gonna look like.
One of the buildings will face Lake Shore and one faces Lake Street,
But I'll need a
Is it
copy of
like
minutes,
you?
even have us sign the minutes.
whatever.
Have
Right.
those.
You might be Lake View. And then the parking, you enter the parking lot from the Coolidge side. Which is one way.
That's for the
Yeah,
condos.
exactly right. There's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you guys will get copies of all this well before next meeting, so you can.
Yeah, when they present it, they're gonna have the actual copy.
I can write up notes from this TCR meeting because I actually remember it. And I'll run them by Chuck before I send them out to you guys because the previous case was it Skyline came in.
Yeah,
I'll have
skyline
to
for
get
this,
with you on that
on the
one.
other side of the school,
So I remember.
which basically when they came in, it really probably wasn't necessary. But I mean, I'm glad they did it. I know Chuck felt it best because they changed the footprint.
Mhm.
They were adding, what, 3 feet or
4 feet.
4 feet? Addition onto the original footprint.
Yeah,
So,
so I'll get with Chuck on that one since I'm not his first in that
Yeah.
one. But I'll start writing official minutes and send them to you guys.
because I know the original site plan had been approved.
Right.
Yeah.
And they already had a permit issued, but they want to add to it. So really, it all would have been an amendment of the
Building permit.
building permit.
Okay.
I mean, if it had been bigger to where it needed to be
Like a
more,
PUD.
yeah, like PUDs, whatever.
Okay, so we're on to citizens input. I've
Citizen
done as
input.
much damage as I can.
Huh?
I've done as much damage as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really have.
Yeah.
If there were pictures.
Yes, I had drawings.
And I'm sorry I put you in the position on that. But I know you were dealing with it a lot more than I was, so I thought you'd be the best person for it.
Kevin?
Did you get a response back from that letter?
No,
That's the next step.
Is this on your fence?
we're going to.
And are we gonna go back to the
court? That's,
His building permit should have run out now, because we were talking about this last fall, and I thought it came up in the first of the year that the.
Time out.
building
I mean, I can't do minutes, but I don't know what we're talking about.
permit-
The letter and this person.
Yes,
His fence.
So,
this is for the
Fence.
property next to 412.
Got it.
412 is my property, the fence issue. Chuck asked if I would write a letter. I wrote a
Got it.
letter that he sent on to the property owner. And so I know at one point we were talking about when the building permit ran out, they wouldn't be able to get their certificate of occupancy and
They can't
those
get it.
things. I'm just curious where it's going from here, so.
I mean, right now, they can't get their certificate of occupancy because it
But
hasn't
they're looking at it
applied.
anyways.
It hasn't applied, which they're not even wanting it right now.
yeah, so they're not carrying.
They don't care. But we were also discussing that before, and we was talking about going back to the back way we used to do it, which was building commissioners could go enforce it if they didn't change it, make it non-conforming and apply fines or whatever, because it's still standing and not complying with what it's supposed to be.
What's still standing, a fence?
Yes.
it's been non-compliance for years.
It's been
Early
2 years or 3 years, right?
At least 3 years.
And I mean, we have never in the past with, when Russ was there, Ed Trudy, all the way back to Dean Norwich. If anything was non-compliant, it was brought straight before, at that time, building commission, building commissioner was authorized to approach them and tell them this need to be done, give them 30 days or whatever. After that 30 days, fines would be applied and they would do it. I mean, I think you remember right next to me when Buddy had that fence. And they came out there and said, if it's not done, you start being fined. Buddy walked out there where they were standing there and got a chainsaw, and cut the fence.
So is that currently in ordinance? Because fines, you can't
At this
just
point,
randomly.
I'm
fine.
honestly,
They have
I
to
have
be
no
in
idea.
Ordinance.
It's the way this is already.
Okay, I'll have
I'm
to
not
look
sure.
into that, because it could be part of the nuisance ordinance or some other
It's-
town ordinance. It's not necessarily zoning.
It's within zoning as well.
It's in
Because it's
in
zoning violation.
of Zoning, but I don't think,
But the
Says
enforcement
the-
may not be in the.
yeah, the fine is not in the zoning.
It's not written in, you mean?
Correct.
And,
It's in another ordinance.
That we can search for.
we always had it in our ordinance book as far as the building commissioner's duties or whatever you want to call it, as far as your authorization. And I wouldn't think that that would have changed because most of that was taken from the
Okay.
state's book, but now we'll be back.
So we need to look into whether we have enforceable ordinance for violations of zoning. Okay, and I need to look into finding the 2010 zoning ordinance.
What could change that the authority wouldn't be in your hands anymore as far as being able to, I mean, if you're building a house, even a BZA, I mean, if you brought before BZA and they discussed whether that house had to be lowered or whatever, you know, because it was non-compliable with the ordinances. This is the same situation when the fence is not, you know, there's an ordinance against it and it's there. So they built
letter
it.
From plan commission or from.
So from the building commissioner, I mean, if Kevin brings before us and we say it ought to be changed because it's not complying with site
Right.
plans, everything, as far as buildable fence, you know,
Yeah, you can send that letter,
and then
but
the,
I don't know that you can find them until I figure out if we have an ordinance for finding them. You
So-
could give
so
them
you're
a-
saying that we were doing that in the past wrongfully?
I don't know.
Possibly. That's what we need to find out.
I just know, like, when I send out a nuisance letter for your grass is too deep, or you have an accumulation of garbage like we did at that apartment building, there's very specific language that I have to share with them that says, if you don't take care of this within 10 days, the town will take care of it.
Right.
And then we will fine you and put a lien on the property if you don't pay the fine, you
Yeah.
know, blah, blah, blah. So all that though has to be in that, and an ordinance that allows you to fine. Even like dogs getting off leashes, you can be fined for that, excluding ordinance.
Right, so that's 10.
Right. I don't know, any fine though has to be documented in ordinance.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you're fining.
Well, I know with Russ Mason's building commissioner's reports, he always had the financial with fines for violations of building something without a permit or
Uh-huh.
building it wrong and making the changes, the enforcement part. And he always had that documented with his reports. And I mean, had it all divided up between what the county got, what the Culver got and all that. But those fines were
Yeah,
always,
as long as it's either there or in another ordinance, you're good.
yeah. And it's really bothering me now.
But I've got a note to look at it, and I can.
It is there because I pulled out the specific. pages of that
Enforcement
that I gave you,
and
so I
penalties.
did it online.
Associated fines.
But no, not fines. I don't know what the fines are, but the associated
and-
violations for there.
What's that?
From page 216,
Is there any way we can make this searchable?
Um,
From page 216 to 222 is enforcement
Let me see.
and penalties.
A PDF document, it should be already. Let's see.
That's what we have on our website.
Oh, yeah, you're not gonna be able to do it on the website, but as a PDF file, usually, no, it did, if he treated it as a graphic versus text, it would not be searchable. But I would not be surprised. But that's something I can easily fix, well, with a lot of time, because it's a lot of groundwork to convert that into a text file. I believe they used InDesign when they created that document, which you can. It could be made searchable. I have to get a copy of the source file to do that. Which means the county would have to give me the electronic version. And I'm guessing they hired someone to do that, Chuck? And they probably gave you guys back an Adobe PDF file, that's my guess.
I know
I'll talk
Ralph
to Tyler about
spent
it.
probably hundreds of hours doing all of the towns. So I don't know, I don't remember if he had somebody doing it. That was early on in my tenure there.
Page 220 says a $200 per day fine. And the date of compliance requested by the building commissioner and notice of violation.
That's a good thing.
Page what?
220.
220. Under the monetary fines.
To find them out.
I can give you a sample, like we could draft a sample letter for this person. Based on that language, Chuck.
What's their name, Kevin? Don't know.
I looked it up for that letter, but I don't remember it.
What's your address?
412.
What's the street?
Lakeshore.
Lakeshore.
Drive, I'm sorry. Trying to look at the name.
So what we probably would do is first draft a letter, give them X amount of time to get it compliant.
Which we've done that.
And we would cite the ordinance that says if you do not
Comply.
make it compliant in this amount of time, you would be fined this fee. And some of it, does it say daily, Bobby? What did it say? How often you can fine them?
$200 per day from the date of compliance requested by the building commissioner.
There you go. So that's good, because then they're either gonna fix it or we're gonna put a lien on it for free.
Now they can appeal that notice of violation. And then they've got
To the plan commission or?
to the BZA.
Okay,
And if the BZA does not, in other words, they can even have a court hearing as far as that, which it can give them, person in violation shall have a maximum of 6 months to complete the hearing process with the BZA. But the failure to meet this deadline will reinstate all fines that are due.
I don't think $200 a day on a lien would get my attention.
You would think, yeah. But I mean, that was my opinion on this Kevin. I mean, I really wouldn't want to go through the same process with everybody that is questioning. I mean, he's been 3 years with lawyers' letters,
Yeah, I got
everything else, but the guy does not want to comply. So he's not responding.
Yeah.
So when you have a non-responding, even though we've got an attorney writing letters, then we need to take action as far as what
Yeah.
we're allowed to do
Yeah, that would get their attention.
to get their attention with fines.
so in the past, did those letters come from building commissioner or from plan commission?
It came from the building commissioner,
Okay,
and in other words, it says, the building commissioner shall issue a notice of violation to the person or persons who has committed in whole or in part a violation.
okay.
And it goes on.
So what we'll do is we'll draft a letter for them. I'll draft one, run it by Chuck, send you guys a copy. Make sure you get me any input if you see any red flag or issue that you think is gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
And then we'll use that as a template in the future where Chuck can just
Yeah.
pull up that letter and
Yeah.
replace the
And-
address, et cetera.
And if Chuck is the person who's doing this, he needs to have a copy of that with the attorney as well. So the attorney's gonna have that, and that way it's gonna be official as far as anything that has to be proceeded in court if they,
Usually when we do the town ones, we CC the attorney and we CC the president of the town council. So in this case, we could CC the attorney and the president of the plan commission. And BZA if you'd like it to go to Dan as well.
They bought that, Kevin, in July.
yeah, it wouldn't go before the
28th,
BZA unless
2020.
It got appealed.
they got appeal.
Might be a good reason to keep them in the loop.
I'm not sure that,
The president of
I
BZA.
mean, under that appeal, we've got the plan commissioners and the building commissioner would probably be attending as well, so
Philip like that.
the information would be there, but it's
Is
not
that a
that
problem?
big a problem unless Don
Violations,
would want to
violation.
copy the,
Violations, violation until it's corrected.
I usually report
I know
on
the
any
markup.
nuisance letter to the council, so they're.
What's that?
I think the
Appeal.
council, under this same conditions too, as
So they
the council ought
probably
to have
fix
for
that.
sure.
I would assume.
So where are we?
So we're gonna write them a letter.
Okay.
The non-compliant with the fence thing. And, we will send that out to plan commission members, just so you know. If you see any issues with the letter that you think are gonna be a problem, let me know, because we're gonna use this as a template for future letters too.
I think it's pretty simple.
And
I mean,
we'll get that sent out certified. It has to be certified mail probably, because I usually send one snail mail and certified mail in that way. Usually the snail mail one gets into the junk folders. And then if we have to do these in the future, I'll give Chuck an electronic copy so you can just keep copy pasting. It sounds like you need to get a certified letter out with the threat of the fine.
yeah, because as far as the authority to do this, it's the plan commission, the board of zoning appeals, Culver Town Council, building inspector and or building commissioner and their designees are designated to enforce the provisions, regulations, and intent of this ordinance. All remedies and enforcement shall comply with the power set forth in IC 36-7-4-1000. No, and everybody else that's applicable by state laws. And so,
That's usually, we cite that in the letter too.
Yeah.
I'll write it the way we do the town ones so that Chuck has like the legal language we typically use.
Yeah. I was just saying,
You've got to
we've
cite.
got an army to fight this, so we need it. You know,
So it does say in here, in this first paragraph, notice of violation, that the notice has to be issued to the person or persons who has committed in whole or in part the violation.
Right.
So does that apply if somebody, like if these folks moved in
Just by
and
ownership.
it
Well,
existed prior to them owning the property?
the thing is, they can't even get a C of O for somebody that buys the property to move in without certificate of occupancy. So
So they're
now,
squatting right now.
they could be squatting if they're living in there. But then that could be actually, it's
Okay.
never been
Want to talk to.
with the building inspector, as far as Mr. Howard.
There's a lot going on.
And then Chuck has to sign the C
That's
of
also a
O.
lot of leverage to fix the fence
Yeah,
that they known about for 2 years.
yeah.
3, yeah.
I better talk to him.
But I just think Kevin's been done an injustice because it hasn't been approached in a way to get it done.
That's how I would argue it if it were my fence. So I didn't commit this violation, I moved in.
Yeah, it was like this when I
Yeah.
got it.
All you did is you bought a house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
call the people that built the fence, find them.
That's true enough. I mean, I don't know when the fence was built.
Right.
That goes in, I know this, the ordinance was there that the fence couldn't be built the way it was. And that's the whole thing. The person that built it is responsible. If it goes back to the contractor not abiding by the ordinances, it doesn't matter. Because the town owner is gonna have to be paying, they're gonna have to get the money from the contractor, whatever it is. They hired the people to do it. So
Was
they
that
are
torn
still.
down, Kevin, or remodeled?
Was remodeled.
Remodeled. Looks like that was about,
Major too, wasn't it? Major remodel.
looks like they started about 2018.
And this started when Marty was on this. board.
Right.
When it actually brought it in, so.
Right. better talk to the attorney about this.
I mean, I truly feel that we need to go to that. Because it seems like we have a lot more and more of that cases going on. Maybe COVID alone was all the new fences and all the new decks and all that stuff that's built, no permits. I know.
And maybe the city.
And maybe
agrees that
some additions.
The, under monetary fines, there is kind of a catch-all that says monetary fines may be imposed at the discretion of the building commissioner
Right.
with the notice.
Right.
So kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, it's a catch-all, but it also puts it
So
a little
was it
discretion on
Right.
just built without
our
a
board a
permit?
little bit. We're not just out
It
there
was built.
policing with
Yeah,
our loaded
somebody's
guns.
trying to, they wouldn't have had to get a separate fence permit for that, but they should have had a site plan for it and they should have followed the ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's not the whole fence, Jenny, they've extended the fence on the front yard. So they're trying to block my house, so they ran it as far as my house is, which is over the setback line. So they ran all the way up to the front of my house. When 25 feet back, they were supposed to either stop the fence or reduce it to half invisible and.
Yes,
Kevin's
50% visible and,
Very definitely a spike.
but the height has to go down too.
And
right.
Height has to go down and the.
And the visibility has to be 50%.
So we just never stopped it.
Right, and we brought it up pretty much as soon as it got built, but it just never got
It is.
followed through. And I would kind of bring it up every 3 months and we kind of,
Kevin has brought it before us several times. And,
Okay.
and we've always had attorney letters
Well-
written.
It'll be in the minutes. But we're into years now.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was in a minute.
And the current homeowners have been there how long?
Hmm?
How long have the current homeowners been there?
I didn't even know anybody moved in. They hadn't.
July 20.
2020 according to John.
July of 20.
Really? But the last time he was in here was this past
2020.
end of the last year. I mean, like
Yeah.
October, November, or whatever, when you brought it up again that we were talking about it. And we didn't think anybody was living there at that
So I'm
time.
not sure how they sold it without a C of O from the original construction, so I don't know what's going on.
I'll go back and research building permit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds sticky.
And July 28th of 2020 is when Northrop's, the present owners, took possession of it.
how would that be approached with a new owner moving in when there was never a C of O from the construction done? In other words, our inspector, building inspector at that time, but you weren't still in when they moved in. So it'd been Steve Howard would have had to have that final inspection for the C of O, right? And so they bypassed that. How would you go back? Is there any, I mean, what's the purpose of the C of O if you can't even go back and correct it?
Well, I think we can. That gives us the leverage for them to become compliant. Violation's a violation until it's corrected, so.
Right, but I mean, who is the uncorrectional?
They
The
can
new
go,
owners? Wouldn't they-
Northrop's can go back and sue Markel if they want to, but we're making Northrop's do what they're
There's
supposed
the
to.
present owners.
Yeah, because they're being put on notice that their property is not in compliance.
Correct.
And not receive the C of O.
Right.
So they would have to apply back to Marshall County.
I mean,
You're assuming they don't have the COO.
I'm assuming, yes.
Which would be
So
another
I'm gonna have to
violation.
go back and dig.
But I know
into
you're
it.
supposed to sign that C of O.
Yeah. if
Well,
you look
no.
into
That doesn't work that way now.
What?
No, it doesn't work that way now.
Okay,
the-
when
We
was
do
this
this
changed?
CFO? Or,
Huh?
Hadley does it.
oh, Ty does.
When they've done all the inspections and Steve signs off on it, Ty Hadley.
Was that the case in 2020?
Yes.
Maybe since,
Yeah.
yeah, since it was prior to this, prior to the online,
That was one of the things that I wanted to talk to Ty and Lori
That
about
was-
was to, before they release that, it needs to come
We
here.
should be signing. off.
we have always had it set up. And then I was personally one of them that made sure that was done here at Culver. Was Russ had the authority and the C of O was written out
Well,
with
no,
a place for our building
we did
commissioner.
just stick something in place, and we can stick this in place. They allowed a certificate of occupancy on a house that was not hooked into sewer water because the homeowner said we got our sewer water hooked in. They did not. They basically got free sewer and water for a few weeks. Bob Porter notices anyone who moves in and out. So Bob Porter called the county and said, why have you issued certificate of occupancy to people who don't have sewer water hooked up? Oh, we didn't know. Well, you're supposed to get sign off from the town where we say, yes, they've got their sewer water hooked up. Then you give it to them. So we could also have, are there any outstanding permits that don't have a certificate of occupancy or whatever? There should be a checklist for
That
the
we should be
county.
able to sign off on it
Yeah.
before they sign
Yeah,
off.
because it was always that way
Tricky
before it
part
went to
is
the county.
Communication. It's easy to call Julie, Cal, or Karen to say sewer water hooked up.
Right.
How many people are they gonna have to call to get these things? We would have to have something put in process too. Or are they calling themselves if they're the ones giving certificates of occupancy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
'Cause I know
the
we've had
county doesn't
cases.
care about what we think. That's the problem. That's why we're not in that loop. That's why Bob's not there. That's why I'm not there.
Well, they just violated their own.
Yes.
Can we find them?
In a way, yeah.
We can start our own permits.
But,
But my concern is putting something logistically operationally in place that takes care of it. that
due,
there's
due to our
communication.
zoning, I mean, we don't have a building inspector, but we do have a building commission. And that's the reason we have the two signatures, is making sure that the zoning requirements according to where it's built is all conforming before he signs it. And as far as the structural and everything else, as far as the building inspector's part of it, he signs it because it is. I know there's been cases where Russ actually stepped up when the building inspector from Marshall
Right.
County, but prior to you, but they were putting an electrical box close enough to the bathroom that
Oh,
it shouldn't have been passed, but Elliot passed it. He said, it's not that big a deal. We're talking a foot, whatever. But Russ Mason came up and said, look, if it's not according to the we can't allow this house to be built, put that there. Russ actually pushed for it. Not that he was
So we're
legally bound to make the guy change.
not currently signing off on certificates of occupancy.
Evidently not,
no, we are not.
but we should be.
The same way, it's when it comes to me or to you to sign off on, it should also have a place for Bob to sign off on too. So that, yes, they have their water and sewer hookup, whatever, and then we sign off on it, or we have to check with him or whatever, but
I gotta sell myself
But
another.
I know Russ had a list that he went through, basic for the CLO. 'Cause I mean, you're looking at the house when it's being built, so you already know what's not passed, what did pass, whatever up to that point.
Right.
And it's usually just the little things that you catch, just like the fence, certain, sometimes maybe a foundation issue or whatever.
We'll get this cleaned up.
We've got our job on our hands, though. No doubt. Two words come to mind: early retirement.
Good thing you were here tonight, John. A lot going on at this meeting.
A lot more than we really thought there would initially. But I tell you what, I mean, when you do start addressing the problems that's been changed or have been progressing over years and years, you couldn't cover them in one night for sure. Maybe not in 6 months.
I think we're to maybe, we have to, any online citizens.
Yeah, anybody online for citizen input? Talk about anything that we haven't talked about already?
If you are, unmute yourself.
Nope. All right, moving on. Have we got any, far as building, you don't have anything else, then?
No.
Not to cut you off, but as far as any, Kirby's right. But, if anybody has any concerns, input, whatever, questions, new members, I'll start from Andrew, and you have anything, input, whatever?
Thank you guys for agreeing to join us. Appreciate it.
Questions, or? I'd say personally glad to have you.
Just obviously, yeah, a lot of, it'll be entertaining.
I tell you what, it can be,
Yeah.
you know, and I would suggest, don't let the frustration override the purpose, you know, and it's easily done, believe me, I'm one of these people that sometimes want to walk out. Don, you have anything?
Yeah, I just welcome our new members. It is important work and most of the meetings are not this long.
Wayne, do you have anything?
Nope.
Appreciate it, though. Chester, you have anything?
He's saying no, but yeah, I think he's on mute.
Are you shaking your head no?
Yeah, it's just that one.
Oh, I can hear it, Chester.
You're good.
All right, only thing we got now is a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So move. Got a first?
Second.
I knew Wayne was there.
I beat Wayne to it.
Do we need a roll call vote?
Yes, we do.
All right,
Okay, Mr. McManaway,
yes.
Mr. Bean,
Yes.
Mr. Goot.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes, nodding his head. Mr. Strati.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper. Yes. And I'm a yes. We are done.
Done. Stick a fork in us.